Welcome back, guys. Today we are going to Wells, Maine, and this video is going to be a little different than some of the others that I've created. We're going to do a drive-through, so I'm going to show you the major areas of Wells. We're going to talk about the coastal area, the flooding, the schools, the proximity to amenities like shopping. Lots to cover and lots to see. We're going to get after it right now. So we're going to take it right here on Chapel Road. So you'll notice it's a pretty gray day here, a lot of overcast, some snow on the ground. It's, middle of January, very typical day here in Wells. We're going to get a little less snow here because we're closer to the coast. And so, it could be a 6-inch difference, sometimes or more because, we're in a coastal town here. So they're impacted by the warmth of the ocean. So in the summertime, your GPS is if you're going to Wells Beach, it's going to take you on Chapel Road, and you're going to notice very quickly in the summertime, July and August, that traffic is simply going to back up here. Wells has a traffic problem in the summertime. It backs up, in some areas for miles. So, just be aware of that. If you're headed to the Seaview West and Seaview East, those campgrounds, those are right there on the right. That also takes you down to YCCC, that right-hand turn that I flew by. So, but yeah, the traffic, even right back to here, it's just backed up with cars, and they're all trying to take a right-hand turn, hoping someone's going to let them in onto Route 1. Now you could, and people are very good about it. They'll let you out, but there's no light. And basically you're waiting for someone on Route 1 to give you a break. And just be aware of that, and I'm glad I did this in the wintertime too, because I really wanted to give you guys a good idea of what it's like. Over there on the left, that barn, that's the Wells Steakhouse. And you're going to see Aubuchon Hardware, a very popular hardware store in the summertime. It's expensive, so you may want to go to Lowe's in Sanford to save some money. There's Mike's Clam Shack on the right, and a little bit further up here is Condon Stone. It's excellent. The owners of both of these restaurants are fantastic, do a lot for the community in Wells. So when I was volunteering in Wells at the high school for my daughter, when she was there, I noticed that those guys really contributed quite a bit, and we were very grateful. So there's the pharmacy on the right, and then a gas station on the left. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a left here on Mile Road. And this is one of 4 roads that will take you down to the beach, because Wells Beach is really kind of an island, right? So it's separated by the marsh. So this is Mile Road. And if you went a little bit further down, you could take a left on Eldridge, then Furbish, and then Bourne. Those are the 4 roads. So a lot of people trying to avoid Route 1, they'll buzz down the Mile Road here and then take a right on Webhannet and try to avoid, and it works, that right-hand turn right there, that'll take you to Hannaford's. It's going to be expensive shopping there because it's really the only fairly big grocery store in town. So a lot of the locals, they head over to Sanford to Walmart, or they'll get on the highway and drive an extra 5 minutes up to Biddeford to get the Market Basket and Walmart up there as well. So here's the marsh. You can see it's a really cold day, really high tide. This area, there's Billy's Charter House on the left. The marsh does flood a few times of the year right over the road. So just, the higher tides now, guys, that's happening here in Wells. We're having flooding right over the roads a few times a year. So, they'll shut the roads down too, so you can't even get down them sometimes. You'll have to go over to Eldridge, and being a local, you'll learn these things over time. But you can see that water's really high, so it will come right over the road, and when that happens, typically they'll shut the road down. So when we get down this road, you'll have some shops. It's an arcade on the right and a little restaurant on the left, and you start seeing hotels. A fifth of, reported by the Bangor Daily News, a fifth of all real estate in Maine, homes and stuff, are vacant during the summer. And this area of Wells is a big reason why, because most of these homes are vacant during the wintertime. So yeah, just boarded up. There's some public parking right here. Wells really doesn't has some great beaches, but there's not a lot of parking for them, not in this area anyway. You'll have to get here early if you want to take advantage of this parking right here. Wells, like other areas of Maine, is losing a lot of sand. I'll talk about that in a minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a right here and head down Atlantic Ave. I didn't cover Drake's Island because there's really limited parking at Drake's Island too. The whole area of Wells has grown a lot over the last 50 years, and parking for the beaches has not increased at all. Yeah, not at all. So really the parking is getting tougher and tougher in Wells. So this area of Atlantic Ave, of the four areas of being on the beach in Wells, there's Drake's, which is probably the highest end, then there's Moody Beach, and then there's Webhannet, and then there's Atlantic Ave. This is probably the least expensive area because it's very tight. But what you like about this area along Atlantic Ave is so many, like 16, 17, 18, we'll count them up, right-of-ways, public right-of-ways to get to the beach. And it's a public beach. You can hang out on the beach. You can enjoy the beach like you can on Drake's and on Webhannet. If you're new to this channel, my name is Michael Patterson, and my partner and daughter is Margaret. We create these videos to educate people thinking about moving to Maine or investing in real estate in southern Maine. So if those are the types of things that you want to learn about, click subscribe and tap the bell so that you'll be the first to know when we post another video. Moody Beach, it's a private beach. You cannot hang out. And a lot of people buying real estate aren't aware of that. So you definitely want to be familiar with or working with a real estate agent who knows these beaches and where it floods, because we're driving through some areas that the flood last year, a lot of these houses took damage because the waves came right over the road and flooded many of these houses. So there's been a lot of selling, some panic selling, and also we'll see evidence of houses getting lifted up because they just flood every year. And so I lived on Webhannet when I was in Wells I lived in Wells for about 10 years, and a lot of that was on the beach. And yes, it's just, I didn't know, when I bought my house that, erosion's a problem and flooding's a problem. So you really need to be aware of that. Real estate prices, don't let that scare you. Prices are still going up. Still a great investment to buy in Wells. I want to take a moment and let you know about a couple of resources that are down below in the description if you want to check them out. The Buyer's Success Guide basically allows you to compare and contrast the different towns in Maine to get an idea of how far they are from amenities, whether or not they have fresh bodies of water, if you want to be on lakes or rivers or things like that, if they're a coastal town, whether or not there's good walking in the town. Some of these towns in southern Maine are really just bedroom communities to the larger towns like Sanford or Biddeford. So those are the types of things you want to learn about. Download the Buyer Success Guide. We also have the Seller Success Guide, which if you're looking to list your property and you want some helpful tips that will help you maximize the return on one of the biggest investments you'll ever have in your lifetime, check out the Seller Success Guide. You'll get some good ideas from that. Again, both resources are free, and you'll find a link to them in the description down below. Make sure I want to point out, guys, that you'll see these crosswalks, like right there. This is a public way. So Atlantic Ave is fantastic. So if you're buying properties on the left which aren't on the ocean, there's another crosswalk. So there's a public way there. These are great rental investments. Even if they're, they might flood periodically, you can lift them up. But there are some higher areas along Atlantic Ave. There's another crosswalk where it doesn't flood so much. So you need to make sure you're working with a real estate agent, because some of these properties are flooding regularly. There's a crosswalk. So we're almost to the end of Atlantic Ave, and try to, make a mental note of what you're looking at here, because you're going to notice that the houses are going to be nicer on Moody. Not all of them, but, the overall, average. I don't want to offend anyone who's got a place on Atlantic Ave. I'm just telling you what, based on my experience as a real estate agent and actually living in this area. Then at the very end here, it opens up, and here's your parking lot. Like I said, I came here, several decades ago with my family, and the parking has not increased, and the housing density has. So it can get full, and you won't get any parking down here. So so not only are you fighting traffic in Wells, it's a touristy town, you have to kind of expect that. What's nice about this area, really nice at the end of Atlantic Ave, is you have this area here where you can dock your boat and you can, or moor your boat. And that way, especially if you're at the end of Atlantic Ave, you can just walk down and get to your boat, because there's no place to have a dock. Obviously, you can't have one on the ocean. It'll get absolutely destroyed by the waves. On the right, the marsh, but a lot of it drains, so you'd be on the mud, and the town may not let you have a dock. So, just be aware of that. So, all right, we're heading back. There has been a lot of erosion of the sand in Wells. And back in January 13th, I have a video that I published. You're going to want to watch that if you're going to want to see what damage can be like in Wells. Many dozens and dozens of homes are getting lifted up or torn down in the last year simply because of that one storm. But like I said, it floods on a yearly basis on many of these streets, so you want to be aware of that. Traffic on this road, it's like 25 miles an hour, but in the summertime, you got to go even slower because it's just frankly dangerous. There's a lot of people. The houses are close to the road. And so you really want to make sure you're going slow when you're cruising through here in the summertime. All right, so just want to make sure everyone is aware that, in my opinion, and what you're going to find real estate price-wise, this area of along the beach in Wells is going to be some of your least expensive. Not cheap by any means, but your least expensive real estate is going to be along Atlantic Ave. And you'll notice even on the left here, which these properties are on the ocean, some of them aren't, because what they are is they're sitting behind a house. And, there's a lot stricter zoning now in Wells, so you're not able to, put a house in your parking lot. That's just not allowed. But look at that great place, right? So it might have some views of the ocean between the properties. So just be aware of that. Atlantic Ave is, there's nothing cheap about it. Very expensive to live in this area, old, and flooding. Flooding is not as bad on Atlantic Ave as the beach that we're going to check out next, which is Webhannet. But they certainly have had some flooding, and they are lifting up many of these houses because it's just getting worse and worse and worse over the years. If you talk to the people that have owned properties down here for 30 years, they'll tell you there's less sand on the beach, and the flooding is more frequent. Storms are getting more violent. Many times when I was on Webhannet, which gets hit the worst, is my house would shake, and I would have to replace or fix my lawn every single year from damage. You just budget for it. So got a few hotels here on the left. Again, most of the houses in the wintertime, there's thousands of them in Wells, they're all vacant, or almost all of them are vacant. People just don't live down here. That's why Maine has a chronic problem with most of our houses along the coast are vacant. So I'm going to take this little shortcut here on Church Street. This is a great area to buy, cool neighborhoods, plenty of elevation, so you don't have to worry about flooding. These houses are not in a flood zone. And so great place to invest because you've got the restaurant walking distance and the sandy beach walking distance. So just like Atlantic Ave, this is even better because you really don't have to worry about flooding at all in this area. So that's some paid parking over there on the left. There's an old church that was turned into an inn there on the right. And this is going to merge onto Webhannet. Now, what I want to say about Webhannet, again, it floods the worst, and you're going to see as we drive down here, these houses are lifting up, and that's because they've got a flooding problem here. It will flood right over the road every year, a few times a year. There'll be rocks in the road. These houses, big new houses here on the left, they'll lose part of their lawn, or they'll be picking big rocks, the size of volleyballs, off of their lawn every single year. So just be aware of that. And this whole stretch here will flood right across. And you can see there's a skid steer. They're still rebuilding many of these houses. They're tearing them down. You can see there's an empty lot there. It's really great area to live. I loved it down here. There's a house being lifted up. The one on the right's being lifted up. that yellow one on the left, and right after that yellow one on the left was the house that I owned for many years. Guys, if you're finding this video informative and you're a giving person, please give it a like. I know it's small, but it really helps us a lot. Thanks. This area right here with Days Lane on the right, it floods right over several times a year. Yeah, so what I did is I just wanted to show you that this whole stretch of road all the way to the end of Days Lane will flood. And so people lose their plants, their cars get totaled. You have to be aware of that. And if you're working with a realtor who's not really familiar with Wells, like Margaret and I, because we lived right here where that skid steer is, and our house is coming up here, our old house is on the left. And there's a Wells pumping station for the sewer district right there on the right. That thing goes down 40 feet underground. I actually went down it, really cool. So as we go up in elevation here, you don't have as much flooding in terms of water staying, but what you do get is water coming over the seawall, and this road right here will turn into a river. I'm not exaggerating. It's several inches of water and a lot of erosion. So just be aware of that. The waves come over the wall. This beach will lose 7 to 8, sometimes 9 feet of sand every winter, and almost all of it comes back every summer. So now we're going to tuck in here on Webhannet. It's going to go behind. These houses are more on the rocks, so they're not seeing as much sand erosion. And there's about 26, 30 spaces that you can pay for. So very limited parking for Webhannet as well. Again, it'll be completely full in the summertime. There's a lobster pan on the right. This is an area where I would get up in the middle of the night and I would come down here because the waves would hit so hard and they'd spark off the top of the tension line. So you can see they're putting a new seawall there. It was all destroyed. Some of the houses on the right were destroyed. You'll see on the right, notice they've got boards in front of all their driveways as we drive down here, and that's because the waves will come over so fast, it will flood, and whoever's boards broke is where all the water goes. You can see that house on the right, it's on pilings. Really heavy erosion on a lot of these properties from that storm. You can see that yellow place up there on the right that almost came down. They had to lift that up and put pilings underneath it. That was Eldridge Road. That's the second road to come down to the beach. So you can see they're boarding up because the waves will hit these houses hard. You know, sometimes they pick up rocks. You can see new asphalt right here. This entire section of road was ripped up and destroyed. They had to repave last spring because of really heavy damage. It was completely covered with rocks. And so this is another great area to buy because now there's no beach in this area, higher elevation, so you don't have to worry about waves destroying your home in this area. My parents were part of that lighthouse there on the left when they were in real estate when I was a kid, so I spent a lot of time down there as a kid. Now instead of taking a left on Ocean Ave, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sneak into this little neighborhood here, and this should be a one-way street, but it's not. Really cute neighborhood to buy in, guys. Remember, all these houses are vacant because, you know, very few people live here in the summertime. So it's mostly people from out of town or really largely out of state. There are some people, clearly there's a guy, but he could be just up for the weekend. And if I go straight here, which I'm going to do, we'll head out on the ocean. So now we're going to head into kind of like the fourth area of Wells because I didn't go to Drake's Island. So this is the Moody Beach area. And I would say this tends to be a very expensive area to buy in Wells if you're looking for something on the beach. And we're still on the rocks. There isn't actually beach here. That's a rocky coast there. And you can see over the years they've piled up more rocks here because, again, the flooding problem that is just something everyone's dealing with. It's not impacting real estate though. Like I said, these properties are still going up in value. So Ocean Ave is largely behind. The houses on the left are on the ocean. The houses on the right are on the marsh, or there's another neighborhood over there. So this area floods all the time. And I was showing a property last fall, and the water was coming right up the road. And I said, hey, did you notice that water on the road? to the buyer, and they said, "Oh no, did it just rain?" I said, "No, that's the tide coming up the asphalt." You know, because it floods regularly, and that wasn't even a super high tide. So just be aware of that. The other thing, okay, now the sandy part of the beach actually starts here, and there's some neighborhoods off to the right, Tibbetts, North Tibbetts, South Tibbetts, great places to invest in. What I don't like about this area of Wells is it's promoted as beach, because it is, but the public access is only for walking. You cannot loiter on this beach, guys. So I did a great video on Ogunquit North Beach, and I'll put a link in the description down below. There's Furbish, so that will flood too sometimes. That goes up to Route 1, so there's only one street left that'll get you down here on the beach. But all of this beach, you know, over a mile, you know, is just, it's private. Now, there are some public accesses, but very few, not like Atlantic Ave. So that means that if you buy on Furbish or you buy on Tibbetts and you're like, hey, let's go to the beach, you can. You just can't put down a towel and hang out. It's not allowed. So a lot of people don't know that. You know, they come down here and they look at the, you know, oh, look at these places on the right and the beach is right there. I'll just use the public access, which isn't close. You got to drive, you know, you got to walk, you know, sometimes, you know, quarter of a mile to get, and then when you're renting, that's a very big deal. Parking spaces and proximity to the beach, a big deal to people that are looking to rent from you down here. So just be aware of that. You know, not all of these properties, you know, because they're on the beach, you can't really use the beach. I mean, you can surf, I guess, or go for a swim, but you're not going to hang out. You know, you're going to have to go up to Crescent Beach, limited parking, the end of it, you know, Mile Road, very limited parking, or, you know, you're going to go all the way down to Atlantic Ave. So Wells doesn't have a lot of parking for their public beaches. Now, Bourne Ave is coming up here. That's the last access to Route 1. So people will come down Mile Road and, you know, shoot past Eldridge and Furbish and then take a right to try to avoid traffic on Route 1. Because like I said, traffic is a problem here in the summertime, but only for like 2 months of the year, I would say. So as we get to the end of this beach, Wells Beach, at the very, very end, it's actually Ogunquit. So I know a lot of people think, oh yeah, we'll go to Wells Beach. But when you get to the end of this road, it's Ogunquit. And so that's Ogunquit Beach, which is public. And there are signs when you go head down to the beach from this parking lot that say, hey, if you go left, don't stop, because you cannot stop. You can walk, you can go in the ocean, but you cannot enjoy the beach the way you would if you stayed to the right when Ogunquit. So watch that other video on Ogunquit North Beach, and I think you'll find that very interesting. So here's the end. So in order to get to this North Beach for Ogunquit, you have to come to Wells, because there's no access to this Ogunquit Beach from Ogunquit. This parking lot's huge, like the end of Atlantic Ave, but it'll be completely full in the summertime. Unless you get here really early, guys, you are not going to be able to enjoy this beach, because it is going to be packed. And the police monitor it, so you won't be double parking or anything like that. So just be aware of that stop sign there. That access was on the right. That is Ogunquit Beach. Again, the beach on the right is Wells Beach. It's private beach. You can walk on that beach, no problem. Just don't stop and hang out, because people will come out of their houses and say, get off, you know, keep moving. Yeah, so it can be, yeah, it's a point of contention. So now you can use the marsh. And I'll tell you, if you're looking at buying real estate in Wells, a view of the marsh is fantastic. I actually had a house where I had a view of the marsh, really good view of the marsh and of the ocean. And the marsh was just by far, you know, because that's where the wildlife are. There's deer out there. So just be aware that that beach, I want to make sure everyone knows, I know I've driven that home, but that beach on the right it's public, but it's kind of not. So we're going to take a left onto Bourne, and we're going to head up to Route 1. Remember, a lot of these roads will flood certain times of the year, and they shut them down for bad storms too. They don't want people down here. Best road to use if you really want to come down and see the storm is Eldridge. Over there on the left, that's still Wells. but I'm not going to take you down to Ogunquit. I'll do if this video does well and you guys want more, make a comment down below if you find these videos informative. If you want information about the real estate down here, feel free to reach out to Margaret or I. So, this is a high traffic area because these 4 roads that head down to the beach, people are trying to avoid Route 1 traffic, and you want to be really aware of that some of these neighborhoods off to the right of these roads is sometimes better because there's a lot of traffic. Not necessarily fast traffic, but, people are trying to avoid Route 1. So here we are coming up to the light. If I took a left, it would take me to Ogunquit. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a right and head kind of north towards Kennebunk. So I hope that's kind of giving you guys a really good overview on, what it's like in the wintertime. Here it is, January. It's been very cold lately. Not a lot get less snow, like I said. And, many of the businesses are shut down. But this is pretty typical in the wintertime in Wells. Okay, guys, I hope you found that video informative. And if you want to learn more about what it's like to live in Wells, watch this next video.